Welcome to the Guitar Channel. I am super happy to welcome you a new interview live from the 2017 NAMM show. I am with Scott Paul from Taylor Guitars. Scott, I guess you are alive, so you did survive the first 3 days of NAMM, right?
Yes, barely. A couple 100,000 people coming in every day, but we're safely secured here in the Taylor booth.
Yeah. You have a very nice space, and it's so peaceful and. To come here and have just a very low noise of level. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, right across the hall here, Taylor's got a concert going on right now, so this is our refuge.
Yeah. Do you play the guitar, Scott?
If you're going to put me on camera, I'm going to say no.
Okay.
But I own a couple of guitars, and I'm a hack.
Okay, nice.
So, yeah.
What was your first guitar?
My first guitar was actually a Baby Martin.
Okay.
And I've got.
Shouldn't say that.
No, I know I shouldn't say that. I got to talk to Bob. And I've also got a Les Paul, a Gibson Les Paul.
Okay.
I do not own a Taylor, but I've only been with Taylor for about 3 weeks.
Okay.
So I'm looking around. I see lots of options.
Okay. Nice. So tell us, I mean, how come now you are working for Taylor? What did you do before, and what are you doing now for Taylor Guitars?
Sure, I've known Bob for well over 10 years, and my entire career has been within the environmental community. For 14 years, I ran the Greenpeace U.S. Forest Campaign. I've worked for a lot of other environmental organizations. I've spent a lot of time at the United Nations. I was even an intern at the White House Office on Environmental Policy a long time ago. So my whole life has been forest sustainability, and I started working with Taylor about 10 years ago looking at Sitka spruce. All of these soundboards, all the yellow bits on acoustics, those are Sitka spruce or maybe Adirondack spruce, a spruce. But really, my hiring kind of represents maybe a turning point for the industry. For a century, guitar manufacturers have got any wood they ever wanted. And
without limit.
Without limit, without question, without even having to think. But now it's getting really difficult. It's not going to get easier. There's going to be more international legislation. There's going to be more requirements. There's going to be more paperwork. And we're very supportive at Taylor Guitars of making sure that the legal infrastructure is in place to bring sustainability to our forests. But if honest operators are operating legally, then we want to make sure we can make a solid body guitar 200 years from now.
What has changed recently with the new regulation around citrus and the rosewood and so on?
Yeah, well, really, for a forest policy wonk, it was the biggest thing in 10, 20 years. The United Nations Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, CITES, they just took rosewood, and traditionally the backs and sides of guitars are made out of rosewood, and they took the entire genus, so rosewood species from all around the tropics. There's a couple of 100 different rosewood species. They moved them all to what they call Appendix 2. And they moved it all to Appendix 2 without annotation, meaning that at the moment, if you have rosewood on your guitar, you're going to need to have CITES paperwork showing it was legal. And if your guitar was manufactured before they passed this law, you're still going to need paperwork to prove that you are what they call pre-convention. Okay. So it's a pretty big moment for the musical instrument community. Rosewood is the workhorse of acoustic guitars. It's everywhere. Yeah. So now we need to have a lot of paperwork.
But so let's say I have a guitar from any brand that I bought 10 years ago with rosewood inside. So what can I do? I mean, I lost the invoice and everything. So
this is the question that has been on everyone's lips here at the NAMM. There's been all these special sessions to talk about CITES, an awful lot of confusion. If it's your personal guitar, the good news, if it's your personal guitar, then it's really not an issue. You can travel with it. But if you want to sell it, and you want to sell it, if you're living in France and you want to sell it to someone in Germany, even though it's in the EU, you're probably going to need to prove that it was pre-convention. So if it's a Taylor guitar, a Martin guitar, Gibson guitar, Fender guitar, you're probably going to have to contact the manufacturer, and there'll be a serial number on the guitar and get paperwork that proves it's pre-convention. But if it's just your guitar, it's not a problem. But if you're selling it, in particular selling it internationally, there's a lot of uncertainty, but you're going to need to prove, if it's got rosewood, that you're going to need your paperwork.
Yeah. I heard that if you own the guitar and you just travel with it for your pleasure, you don't need any special paperwork. But if you are a pro guitar player and you go abroad to play a concert, then you need to have the paperwork. Is that correct?
Again, if it's your personal guitar, it's going to be okay. If you're going to sell it, it's a problem.
So it's only if I sell it that I need some paperwork?
Sell it, but also repairs. And this just happened a few months ago, and everyone has got questions. But it's also considered a commercial transaction if you break your guitar and you have to ship it to the United States to get it fixed, and there's money exchanged. The United States may consider that a commercial transaction and you need paperwork. Another country may not consider that a commercial transaction. Europe tends to err on the side of caution when it comes to environmental conventions. So one would expect, Germany, for example, would be a notorious country that would be very strict. And I would advise, asking. You can certainly travel with it. Don't worry about traveling with it. But if you're, if it's rosewood on Appendix 2, you're fine. If it's Brazilian rosewood, which is on Appendix 1, then don't go anywhere. Don't cross the border. Play at home.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about what Taylor Guitar is doing about sustainability issue and so on. But to continue around the CITES issue, what do you say to the small builder that says, well, I am a small builder, I don't understand why this is going to be applied to me. I just build, 5 guitars per year. Why are they bothering me with that regulation?
So I guess the question is, why did this happen? And it's politics, but it's real. The issue that caused this was, frankly, Asian, largely Chinese furniture manufacturing. The Chinese middle class is exploding. They all, a sign of affluence are these rosewood furniture. And if you look at what's happening in particular in Africa, but also in parts of Southeast Asia, in terms of the gross illegalities, things that any human being would look at and say, this is wrong, this must be stopped. It's still happening, and it's happening every day. And a lot of it is the hunt for rosewood. And it's nothing to do with musical instrument manufacturers. They use a little bit of rosewood. But the issue was so serious that they just said, all right, all rosewood. And you could ask, well, why Indian rosewood? Because the country of India is not problematic. But the problem is rosewood is so, not even an expert can really look at two pieces of wood and say, oh, this is Indian rosewood and this is Madagascar rosewood or African rosewood. So it's so difficult to distinguish. They just said all rosewood. And now for the next couple of years, we'll be at a lot of meetings trying to figure out how to make this work so that honest companies can continue to buy and sell rosewood, but we don't open loopholes so the people operating illegally can continue to get away with it. It's a serious problem. What's happening with illegal forest conversion is a serious problem, and Taylor and most of the musical instrument manufacturing community is very concerned.
Can you detail a bit more what Taylor is doing around all the sustainability issue?
Well, we're doing a lot, and there's a lot of leadership coming from different manufacturers. At Taylor, we've kind of taken an extraordinary step where I think Bob has, for 40 years, he's been on the shop floor. He's been obsessed with the quality and detail of manufacturing guitars. He's still concerned with that, but I think he's in legacy mode, and now he's equally concerned. Are we going to be able to make the same guitar? And 30, 40, 100 years. So we've been very proactive with taking control of our own destiny with the resource itself. With a Spanish partner, Medinter Tonewoods, we purchased and run an ebony company in Cameroon. It's extremely difficult, but
Why is it difficult?
because there's a lot of corruption in parts of the world, and a lot of people, bribes and corruption are just part of how you do business. And Taylor went in with Medinter from day one and said, we're not going to do that. We're not going to pay bribes. And I think it was very confusing for a lot of people in the ebony trade. But you're really starting from nothing, and you're taking a factory where the workforce didn't frankly have shoes or proper safety. So we've done a lot to improve the social side of it. We're also very active with plant tree propagation. Bob Taylor has spent a lot of his personal money, not even Taylor money, working with some of the leading scientists who are trying to grow ebony through tissue culture. And this is an era of restoration and reforestation. There's only three things you can do with the forest. You can leave it alone, you can cut it down, or you can grow it back. And we haven't been doing the grow it back thing as a species really ever, but for a bunch of reasons, because of red and climate change, and we're approaching an era globally where people are going to be taking restoration more seriously, because when a tree grows, it sucks carbon, and that helps climate change. And Taylor is kind of accidentally on the leading edge of this, looking at restoration initiatives for ebony in the Congo, looking at restoration issues for koa in Hawaii, looking at restoration initiatives for maple in the US. So I keep telling Bob, you're going to be dead before you know if you succeeded. And but he's doing it anyway. He's spending a lot of time and effort to try to grow forests again, and obviously in particular with a particular focus on the species that go into guitar manufacturing.
So at the moment, all the ebony that is used on Taylor guitars comes from the Cameroon plantation, or just part of it, or it's not even started at all?
No, all ebony that Taylor guitar uses, and we sell to other manufacturers, but all ebony that Taylor uses comes from Creeley in Cameroon. It's a company that we're very proud of, where it was, where it is today, and where it's going to be. We're working with some of the leading ebony scientists from UCLA, the University of California, Los Angeles, people that have been studying ebony for their entire careers. And, check back in, keep us honest. So I worked at Greenpeace for 14 years, and now I'm at Taylor, and in many ways I'm more optimistic that I can do more good. I can move the ball further at Taylor than at Greenpeace, and I loved Greenpeace. But
you have more impact, you think, inside a big company like Taylor?
I think there's more possibility to do good things than I've had in a while.
Sorry?
No, I'm just very excited about the possibility.
And do you have an opinion regarding the quality of the wood? Because are we going? So you are optimistic about that? Yes, that we are going to be able to have wood for a long time if we take precaution and so on to keep on making guitars. But what about the quality? Is it?
It's a great question.
An issue?
When it comes to ebony, it's not a matter of quality. It's a matter of taste and tradition. Where commonly you wanted the fingerboard. The ebony is used on the fingerboard, and everyone wanted black. It's got to be black, jet black. So what was happening in reality is they knew the market wanted black, so they would cut down an ebony tree, split it into two, and it wasn't jet black. It was smoky, and they would just walk away. So they were cutting trees down and letting them rot unless it was jet black. So at Taylor, we're on many of our series now that we own an ebony company, and we're learning all of this. A lot of our fingerboards you'll see have a milky color from a quality standpoint, there's no difference at all.
Okay.
It's just it's tradition and aesthetics. I personally think it looks beautiful. But you'll see at the NAMM show, more and more companies are going to laminates and synthetics, and Bob likes wood. And we'll find a way through design innovation and using woods that other companies may not traditionally use because of the way it looks, but the quality has not changed. And we want to build a solid wood guitar. And we want to build a solid wood guitar in 400 years.
Do you think that Taylor Guitars is going to experiment with more wood species, or now the recipe is known and will you keep on having your effort on what you already know as wood species rather than experimenting with new ones?
I think the interesting thing about Taylor is it's just constant innovation. Other companies are very traditional. They make a wonderful product, a brilliant guitar, but it's, as an American we would say it's old Coke. It's the Coca-Cola formula. Do not change it ever. And Taylor's kind of like the Apple computers of the guitar world. We're constantly innovating and experimenting with species that are not traditionally used. But as long as the quality is there, then who cares if the fingerboard is jet black or milky if it's still a pure quality ebony fingerboard? Personally, I'd rather play that than a plastic laminate or something. That may sound nice, but so I think we're going to have to get we're going to have to get over some tradition and accept that sometimes woods traditionally guitar makers wouldn't look at a soundboard unless it was 250 years old. You can have a fantastic sounding soundboard if it's much younger, in some circumstance, if you brace it correctly. So I guess the answer is Taylor's constantly innovating and with new species, new designs, and hopefully we'll be successful with it.
What would be your piece of advice you would give to the people watching this when they choose their next guitar? So obviously you're going to say buy a Taylor guitars because we know what we do and we do good things with wood, but how can we do our homework and say, okay, I want to buy XYZ guitar brand, but are they doing something good with the woods?
Yeah, there's a guitars are like wine, like they all are different and you have your tastes, and maybe you like a Taylor, maybe you like something else, and there's 500 Taylors in this room and they all sound a little bit different. So buy a guitar when you fall in love with it. Play many guitars and find the one you love and marry that one. But then ask questions. Where did this, guitar is a fascinating example of the world's forests. Traditionally, the neck's mahogany. Well, traditionally, that comes from Central America or South America. The soundboard is spruce. That comes from North America, or once upon a time, Engelmann from Europe, but there's not a lot of Engelmann left, so they moved westward. Rosewood, backs and sides, that's from the tropics. Ebony fingerboards, that's from Africa and a few other places. So a guitar is a representation of all the world's forests. And that's beautiful. But a lot of the world's forests are in trouble. So milk does not come from the store. Milk comes from a farm.
Really?
and a guitar, these woods come from lots of different places. And educate yourself. Find out what species are these and where did they come from. And you can even educate yourself if it's legal wood or good wood. But it's like your wife, find the woman you love and marry her and don't rush. And it's the same with guitars. Find the one you love. And the good thing about guitars is you can have more than one.
Yeah. That's a big difference. Yeah, right.
That is the major difference. This is going to be in France, and my wife won't see it. So.
Okay. All right, Scott, it was great to be able to have you on the show. So thank you very much for sharing such interesting information and insight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pierre. It's a pleasure.